Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Saida Khadija Fatima, Assistant Professor in Pathology, and I'll be talking about joint diseases in bones and joint pathology today. So there are two types of joints, non-synovial and synovial joint. The non-synovial joint lack a joint space and are grouped according to the type of connective tissue between the two ends of the bone. One is fibrous synarthrosis and the other one is cartilaginous synarthrosis. An example of fibrous synarthrosis joint is the cranial sutures, and cartilaginous synarthrosis is symphysis pubis and manubrium sternalis. The synovial joint, in contrast, have a joint space. So this joint space will be enclosed by a dense fibrous capsule, and there will be a joint cavity filled with a fluid. So this joint cavity will be bordered by synovial membrane. So this synovial membrane doesn't cover the ends of the bone, and at the ends of the bone it will transform into articular cartilage. This articular cartilage can be hyaline cartilage, is mostly hyaline cartilage, which is formed because of enchondral ossification at the ends of the bone. This synovial joint space is filled with synovial fluid. Synovial fluid is secreted by the synoviocytes. So basically synovial membrane consists of two types of cells. Type A cells, which are nothing but macrophages, and type B are the synoviocytes. So this synoviocytes secretes hyaluronic acid and various proteins. So synovial fluid is a plasma filtrate containing this hyaluronic acid that acts as a viscous lubricant and provides nutrition to the articular hyaline cartilage. Today, the aim of today's class is to discuss the pathogenesis, the morphology, the clinical course of common diseases of joints. We'll be discussing about osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, gouty arthritis, and infectious arthritis. Arthritis, in the sense inflammation of the joints, it can be either due to degeneration of the cartilage, which is osteoarthritis. Then it might be due to autoimmune causes, which is rheumatoid arthritis. Infectious causes can also cause arthritis because of bacterial infection, tubercular infection, Lyme diseases, and viral diseases. Crystal-induced arthritis includes gout and pseudogout. Tumors can be benign tumors like synovial cysts and ganglion, and giant cell tumor, which is pigmented willow nodular synovitis, and malignant tumors like synovial sarcomas. All these can occur in joint. So we'll start with osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is a classical of degenerative joint disease. This is characterized by degeneration of the cartilage that results in structural and functional failure of the synovial joints. An intrinsic disease of cartilage in which chondrocytes respond to biochemical and mechanical stresses, resulting in breakdown of the matrix. So this matrix is the matrix of the articular cartilage. Osteoarthritis is of two types, primary and secondary. When do we say primary? Always remember that primary is when there is no other cause besides the joint disease. Like there is no associated diseases or deformities or secondary complications. If they are not there, then we call it as a primary osteoarthritis. And usually it will be associated with aging. It won't be present in young individual. Primary osteoarthritis will always be associated with elderly people. So insidious on onset, that is sudden on onset. Insidious means gradual on onset with age and without apparent initiating cause will be there. Most commonly affected joint in osteoarthritis will be the hands, the knees, the hips and the spine. It is also called as idiopathic osteoarthritis and oligoarticular type of osteoarthritis, means very less number of joints will be affected here. Now 5% of the cases can be due to secondary osteoarthritis. So secondary osteoarthritis means there will be some associated predisposing conditions like joint injury or previous trauma, joint deformities, maybe the developmental deformities, and systemic diseases like diabetes, ochronosis, hemochromatosis, marked obesities. So all these can cause secondary osteoarthritis. Coming to the pathogenesis, majority of the lesions of osteoarthritis is basically because of degeneration of the articular cartilage and its disordered repair. Means normally also we'll be undergoing, our joint spaces will be undergoing some trauma, some mechanical stress, and also because of the aging process they will be definitely wear and tear. Chondrocytes are designed as such that they synthesize the matrix as well as they enzymatically digest it. So with age, the synthesis will decrease and enzymatic digestion will increase, that is breakdown will increase because of mechanical stress, because of aging, because of genetic factors, or because of the hormonal changes, especially in the females, and because of the increased bone density. All these will lead to an increased degradation of the articular cartilage. So there will be a disordered repair, and because the joints will be less resistant to tension and compression, it will lead to degradation. Degradation of what? Degradation of the extracellular matrix present in the cartilage, like the collagen will decrease, type 2 collagen will decrease, and proteoglycans will increase. All these are important for resistance of the joint. So what happens basically here? There will be initial chondrocytic injury. So because of the biochemical and genetic factors, what are the genetic factors? There will be polymorphism and mutations in gene encoding components of the matrix of the cartilage and signaling molecules. So there is a articular cartilage here with the end of the bone, and there is a synovium here. Synovium will be lined by type A, type B synovicites. So this synovium also plays a major role in degradation of the matrix. So this articular cartilage, that is the hyaline cartilage, will have chondrocytes spaced in the lacuna spaces, and these chondrocytes will be affected by genetic and biochemical factors. So what happens here? They will synthesize in response to any injury to the cartilage by secreting interleukin 8 and bone morphogenic proteins. They will cluster and they will finally mature and try to regenerate the articular surface. They also secrete prostaglandins, nitric oxide and tumor necrosis factor, which will again recruit inflammatory cells towards the site of injury. They also secrete, the degradation part is here. They also secrete matrix metalloproteins which will degrade collagen and also degrade proteoglycans. So these degradation and synthesis takes place simultaneously, but as the age progresses, or because of increased mechanical trauma or increased mechanical stress to the joint, there will be a stage when the synthesis will decrease, that is chondrocyte proliferation will decrease and breakdown will increase. So finally there will be chondrocyte dropout because of loss of both the matrix. So you are seeing that the thickness of the matrix has decreased here and chondrocytes are also decreased here. There will be death of the chondrocytes, that is apoptosis of the chondrocytes finally, and because of that there will be sloughing off of the articular cartilage. So now the bone will be exposed, the subchondral bone will be exposed, and there will be finally changes in the subchondral bone in the late osteoarthritic stages. So aging mechanical stress causes an imbalance in the expression, activity and signaling of the cytokines and growth factors involved in the synthesis and degradation of matrix. Cytokines involved, as I said, the synovium released tumor growth factor and the cytokines released by the chondrocytes either to recruit the inflammatory cells or to stimulate its synthesis. All these there will be imbalance because of aging and mechanical stress that will lead to imbalance in the synthesis and degradation of the matrix. So finally, in the late stage, there will be degeneration of the cartilage containing more water and less proteoglycan. So earlier, like in a normal cartilage, there will be 70% of water, 10% of collagen and 8% of proteoglycans. Eventually, there will be degeneration of the matrix leading to more water and less proteoglycans and diminished type 2 collagen. The 10% collagen will be lost completely. So morphologically, grossly what do we see is early changes in osteoarthritis include alteration in the composition and structure of the matrix. So grossly we see chondromalacia, that is soft granular appearance appearing on the articular surface. So as there is sloughing off of the cartilage, there will be soft granular appearance of the cartilage, like here there will be soft granular appearance. So this is the femoral head because of the femoral fracture in a patient with osteoarthritis. So this there will be glistening articular cartilage, while the femoral head there will be glistening articular cartilage here because of the chondromalacia. Now what will happen to the subchondral bone? So when the cartilage is sloughed off, the bone below the cartilage is exposed. That's called as subchondral bone plate. So there will be smoothing and polishing of that subchondral bone, giving it a polished ivory appearance. So this is how the subchondral bone after the loss of the cartilage will look like, giving it a polished ivory appearance that is typical of osteoarthritis. So eventually what happens is in the joint spaces, whatever cartilage and the bone fragments have fallen in the joint spaces, they will be in the form of rice bodies or loose bodies or joint mice. These are the small fragments because of the fracturing of the dislodged cartilage and subchondral bone into the joint. So finally we have a hibernated bone in the late stage of osteoarthritis, which is smoothened subchondral bone. This is the left out articular cartilage. So what happens in the smoothened articular bone, there will be minute fracture in the subchondral bone leading to resorption of the bone, and the synovial fluid might enter into the subchondral spaces leading to formation of subchondral cyst. So this is how eventually bony end will have multiple subchondral degenerative cysts in the femoral head. So obviously this joint won't be able to bear the weight of the patient. Microscopically, what we see is early changes include alteration in composition and structure of the matrix. There will be vertical and horizontal fibrillation and cracking of the matrix which occur in the superficial layer of the cartilage. So this is a scanner view showing, this is a low power view showing the articular cartilage. This is the cartilage, the chondrocytes, and this is the enchondral ossification zone. This is the lamellated trabeculae of the bone with medullary cavity, that is the cancellous bone. This is the enchondral ossification zone, and this is the cartilage, which is now have ragged edges or fibrillation. This is a feature of osteoarthritis, early osteoarthritis. Sometimes there will be mushroom shaped bony outgrowths developed at the margins of the articular surface like this. Okay, outgrowths of bone will be there covered by cartilage, or they can be fibrous synovial pannus covers the peripheral portion of the articular surface in severe disease. So either it will be a fibrous covering or the bone itself might outgrow, and synovium will be congested, fibrotic, and scattered chronic inflammatory cells can be there on microscopy. So this is how osteophyte will look like, which is nothing but this is the bone which has outgrown outside the, suppose this is a femoral head, so it has outgrown the bone and it is still covered by articular cartilage. So osteoarthritis has insidious onset and it predominantly affects 50s to 60s patients. The characteristic symptoms and signs include deep aching pain exacerbated by use of NSAIDs, and morning stiffness will be there, crepitus will be there, and limitation in range of movement will be there. Clinically, osteophyte impingement on spinal foramina can cause nerve root compression with radicular pain, muscle spasm, muscle atrophy, and neurological deficits. Now remember this Heberden nodes in the fingers. So these are osteophytes at the distal interphalangeal joint. Osteophytes at distal interphalangeal joint, Heberden nodes. So you have to differentiate from the rheumatic joint diseases or rheumatic heart diseases where you have such kind of nodes. Okay, so remember, so significant joint deformity can also occur. So this is the osteophytes at the interphalangeal spaces. Yeah. This is the osteophyte at the interphalangeal spaces. The joints involved in osteoarthritis is hips, knees, lower lumbar region, cervical vertebrae, proximal and distal interphalangeal joints of the fingers. First, carpometacarpal joints, first tarsometatarsal joints of the feet are commonly involved. Rheumatoid arthritis is a form of autoimmune diseases. It is a systemic chronic inflammatory disorder that affects many tissues and organs, including the skin, blood vessel, heart, lungs, and muscles, but principally attacks the joints. It is characteristically non-suppurative proliferative synovitis. It can progress to destruction of the articular cartilage and the underlying bone, resulting in ankylosis of the joint. So this is the only thing from which it differs from osteoarthritis, that is the ankylosis of the joint, that is fusion of the joint, which does not happen in osteoarthritis. Coming to the pathogenesis, so as it is an autoimmune disorder, it involves complex interaction of the genetic factors, environmental factor, and the immune system. So genetic factors is 50% of the risk is related to inherited genetic susceptibility like HLA, BRB1 and PTPN22 gene. So this environmental factor means infection and smoking, because all infections and smoking might lead to inflammation. So inflammation is again a predisposing factor for autoimmune reaction. Genetic and environmental factors contribute to the breakdown of tolerance to self-antigen. So in any autoimmune disorders, the tolerance to self-antigen is very important. What is tolerance? Tolerance means unresponsiveness. So if you go back to the autoimmunity, It is caused by autoimmune. In autoimmune, basically the T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes play a major role. So few lymphocytes will differentiate into immature, like few immature lymphocytes recognize self antigen in the central lymphoid organs, and few mature lymphocytes recognize self antigen in peripheral tissues. So these lymphocytes recognizes the self antigens and they get killed by apoptosis. In order to prevent a new reaction, it will kill itself by apoptosis. That is called as tolerance. So tolerance to self antigen is fundamental property of immune system, and breakdown of tolerance is the basis of autoimmune diseases. So if there is a failure of self tolerance, then development of autoimmunity will take place, and the factors that might contribute is either genetic factors or environmental factors like infections and tissue injury that exposes the self antigen repeatedly to the antigen presenting cells and the lymphocytes in the tissues. Genetic susceptibility is specific HLA-DR1 alleles have been shown to be associated with rheumatoid arthritis. Another gene associated with rheumatoid arthritis is PTPN22 gene, which encodes a tyrosine phosphatase that is postulated to inhibit T cell activation. Environmental factors, many infectious agents whose antigen may activate T or B cells. So basically the thing is, we don't want active T and B cell. We want inhibition of this activated T and B cell. So immature T cells or B cells, when they recognize antigens, whether it is self or external, so when they recognize the antigen, they are called as activated T and B cells. So we don't want that. We want to kill those by apoptosis. I mean, it should kill itself by apoptosis. So infectious agents will activate these cells, and sometimes these are not killed. So these will be recognized by the body and it will elicit an autoimmune response. Also, smoking and infections produce citrullination of some self proteins. So what are most common self proteins which are citrulinated is the fibrogen. So fibrogen is present where? In the plasma. Fibrogen, collagen, vimentin, enolase, all these proteins will be citrulinated. What do you mean by citrullination? So citrullination means whenever in a protein arginine residue is converted into citrulline by a translation method. So this will lead to citrullination of either fibrinogen, collagen, and it will be deposited. So these will act as antigens. So antibodies are directed against these citrullated peptides, and if these antibodies joins with the antigens in the joint cavity, then they form antigen antibody complexes. Okay, so these antigen antibody complexes will be deposited in the joint cavity and will produce the joint injury and will mediate the joint injury. So this is one of the, like, citrullination of self antigen is one of the trigger of autoimmune reaction. Cyclic citrullinated peptides are derived from proteins in which arginine residues are converted to citrulline residues post-translationally. 70% patients of the blood contains CCP antibodies, that is antibodies directed against cyclic citrullinated peptides, which may be produced during inflammation. So these are diagnostic, that the patient might be having a rheumatoid arthritis and patient might show a chronic disease later. Pathological changes are caused mainly by these antibodies directed against self antigen and the cytokine mediated inflammation. So, as I said earlier, the citrullinated fibrogen, type 2 collagen, vimentin, all these are antigen, and antibodies are directed against these antigens. So, there will be immune complex formation which are deposited in the joint and will destroy the joint. Now, one important factor of this rheumatoid arthritis is rheumatoid factor. So, what is rheumatoid factor? So, whenever, like, there are 5 types of antibody: IgG, IgM, IgA, IgE, and IgD. In rheumatoid arthritis, IgM, IgA antibodies, if these antibodies go and joins to the Fc end of IgG antibody, okay, so there's an antibody reaction. IgM and IgA antibodies go and join to the Fc portion of autologous, means self IgG antibody. There it is called as a rheumatoid factor. So autoantibodies to the Fc portion of the autologous IgG. Rheumatoid factor, however, is not present in some individual with the disease, that's called as seronegative, and and is sometimes found in other diseases as well. So it is not specific. That's why rheumatoid factor is less specific than cyclic citrullinated proteins in rheumatoid arthritis. So disease is initiated in a genetically predisposed person by activation of CD4 helper T cells responding to arthritogenic agent, possibly microbial, or to a self antigen such as cyclic citrullinated peptide. So either genetic or environmental factor like infection will elicit autoimmune response. Rheumatoid factor can be seen. So antigen antibody complexes will be deposited on the joint cavity or the synovium, leading to synovial inflammation. Again, a diagrammatic representation of the pathogenesis. Genetic susceptibility of genetic factors. Like susceptibility genes are the HLA, DRB1 and PTPN22 gene. So these genes will be either activated or inactivated, leading to failure of tolerance. Failure of tolerance lead to unregulated lymphocyte activation. If the lymphocyte is activated, so T and B cell, if activated, it will lead to activation, formation of T helper 17 cell and T helper 1 cell. And if B cell is activated, that will lead to plasma cell modification, leading to production of autoantibodies. The TH17 cell and TH1 cell, all TH17 cell basically will release interleukin 17, which recruits neutrophil and monocyte. Then TH1 cell release interferon gamma, which will recruit macrophages. TNF1 and interleukin 1 from the macrophages stimulates the synovial cells to secrete proteases. And also rank L is also stimulated to cause resorption of the bone. So all these will act on the fibroblasts, chondrocytes, synovial cells, and will lead to proliferation of the synovial cells because of the interferon gamma, and release of collagenase, stromiolysins, elastase, prostaglandin E2, and other enzyme because of the degradation of the matrix, causing the degradation of the matrix, leading to pannus formation. Okay, release of collagenase, stromiolysins, elastase lead to production of matrix, leading to Panus formation. Also, it might lead to destruction of bones because of rank L expressed on activated T cells. So that will lead to bone destruction. Fibrosis is again because of collagenesis and elastasis. So all this will lead to finally the increase in the fibrosis and destruction of bone, leading to ankylosis, which is the end result of the. So this is the antigen presenting cell, which recognize the self antigen through MHC class 2. So this is a CD4 cell which is giving presenting the self antigen to the antigen presenting cell, and it is getting activated to release these cytokines. Again the same thing. So these cytokines, when released, will activate will cause macrophage activation, like interferon gamma can cause macrophage activation, leading to proliferation of the fibroblasts, chondrocytes, synovial cells, and release of collagenesis through myosin, elastase, prostaglandin E2. B cell activation forms autoantibodies, leading to immune complex deposition, then joint injury, and formation of Panus formation and bone destruction, fibrosis. So both represents the same thing. So you can make a flow chart of yourself, simplify it as much as possible, and present your own interpretation for the pathogenesis of rheumatoid arthritis. Morphologically, in a joint, the synovium becomes thickened, inflamed, transforming the thin smooth synovial into lush edematous villus projection or frond-like projections will be seen because of proliferation, and that will lead to chronic papillary synovitis. Characteristic histological features includes, okay, I'll show you all together. So first will be synovial cell hyperplasia and proliferation. Okay, synovium is the lining of the joint space, so that will increase in layers and proliferate. Second is infiltration of synovial stroma by a dense perivascular inflammatory infiltrate. So lymphocytes, main cells. So lymphoid aggregates will be there. Activated B cells, plasma cells, dendritic cells, macrophages. So dense perivascular inflammatory infiltrate will be there. Increased vascularity due to vasodilatation and angiogenesis with superficial hemosiderin deposits. Fourth will be aggregation of organizing fibrin covering the portions of synovium. So this will be leading to Panus formation. Accumulation of neutrophils, that is because of recruitment by the TNF and interleukin 1 because of the cytokines released by the lymphocytes, and osteoclastic activity because of the rank L expression by the activated lymphocytes, allowing the synovium to penetrate into the bone and causing periarticular bone erosion, subchondral cyst, and osteoporosis. Panus is a mass of synovium and synovial stroma consisting of proliferating synovial lining cells admixed with inflammatory cell, granulation tissue, and fibrous connective tissue. Overgrowth of this tissue is so exuberant that thin smooth synovial membrane is transformed into villus projection. So again here we are seeing a normal joint. So this side is a normal joint with adequate joint cavity, synovial lining, the capsule, and this is the end of the lower bone covered by articular cartilage. Now in rheumatoid arthritis, there will be first lymphocyte activation, lymphocyte and dendritic cell, presentation of this antigen to the dendritic cells. Then there will be release of cytokines which will recruit plasma, which will recruit neutrophils and macrophages to the site. Also it will activate B cells, so plasma cells will be formed, and that will release autoantibodies. So also the macrophages will release collagenases, enolases, and fibrogenic factors which will lead to fibrosis of the synovial membrane, leading to Pannes formation. Plasma cells will release antibodies, so antigen antibodies complexes will be formed and will be deposited on the immune complex on the synovial membrane. This is proliferation of the synovial membrane or synovial cell hyperplasia, and in the stroma of the synovium there is dense lymphocytic aggregates. Okay, all this is lymphocytes, and covering of this fronds is the synovial membrane. So mainly this is the frond like synovial proliferation seen in rheumatoid arthritis. This is a closer view of this frond. These are the synovial cells. So basically synovial cells are like 3 to 4 cell in thickness, but here the cell thickness will be more than 3 to 4 cells. So synovial cell hyperplasia, and in the stroma of the synovium there will be dense lymphocytic aggregates. You can see small proliferating capillaries here filled with RBCs. So there will be a proliferation of capillaries. Plasma cells are characteristic features of rheumatoid arthritis. So here you can see, I am trying to point out plasma cell here. So here is a plasma cell. Okay, see above my red pointer, this is a plasma cell. Majority I can make out plasma cells. I hope you can make out too. So this is characteristic of rheumatoid arthritis. So in time after the cartilage has been destroyed, Pannes bridges the opposing bones to form fibrous ankylosis, which eventually ossifies and results in bony ankylosis. Inflammation in tendons, ligaments, and occasionally adjacent skeletal muscle frequently accompanies the arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis can affect the skin as well, causing subcutaneous rheumatoid nodule, which are firm, non-tender, round to oval lesions. Most common, and it arises subcutaneously. Cutaneous lesion, approximately 25% of the individuals are affected here, and sites are it arises in the regions of the skin that are subjected to pressure. Ulnar aspect of the forearm, elbows, occiput, lumbosacral area. Less commonly they form in the lungs, spleen, pericardium, myocardium, heart valves, aorta, and other viscera. Microscopically, rheumatoid nodules will be composed of central fibrinoid necrosis, and it will be surrounded by a prominent rim of epithelioid histiocytes, which are nothing but slipper shaped cells. So this is a low power view showing a central area of fibrinoid necrosis, not caseous necrosis, fibrinoid necrosis, which is eosinophilic acellular material in the center along with some inflammatory cells, and this will be surrounded by a rim of epithelioid histiocytes along with numerous lymphocytes and plasma cells will be there. So characteristic palisading of the fibroblast will also be seen. Clinically, symmetrical joints will be involved, and it will be polyarticular type. Osteoarthritis was oligoarticular. This is polyarticular, starting with the small joints first, going to the larger joints. Symptoms includes weakness, malaise, low-grade fever, subcutaneous rheumatoid nodules. Vasculitic involvement of the extremities may give rise to Raynaud phenomena and chronic leg ulcers. In acute rheumatoid arthritis, classic presentation includes polyarthritic joints, where mostly the small interphalangeal joints are affected first, producing fusiform swelling of the soft tissue, and the lesion is usually symmetric, present on all the fingers. And chronic rheumatoid arthritis, the characteristic deformity is the swan neck deformity or boutonniere deformity, where there is radial flexion of the wrist, ulnar deviation of the fingers, and flexion hyper extension abnormalities of the fingers as well. Radiographic hallmarks are joint effusion, juxta-articular osteopenia, erosion and narrowing of joint space, loss of articular cartilage, diffuse osteopenia, narrow joint space, periarticular bony erosions, and ulnar drift of the fingers. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis is a group of multifactorial disorders with environmental and genetic components. The etiology is not known and it is classified into oligoarthritis, polyarthritis, and systemic variants. That is, systemic variant is called Still's disease. Large joints are often affected. In classic rheumatoid arthritis, small joints are affected mostly. It begins before the age of 16 years and persists for more than 6 weeks. Extra-articular inflammatory manifestations such as uveitis may be present. So you have to remember the age of onset. The extra-articular inflammatory manifestation is uveitis, and it is has all range of joint involvement like and starts with oligoarthritis or polyarthritis and systemic variants. So this is a case seen in a young patient, the rheumatoid arthritis leading to joint deformities at very young age. Now coming to gout. Gout is also called as crystal-induced arthritis. It affects about 1% of population and shows a predilection for males. It is caused by excessive amounts of uric acid within the tissues and body fluids. Monosodium urate crystals precipitates from supersaturated body fluids and induce an acute inflammatory reaction. By definition, gout is marked by transient attacks of acute arthritis initiated by crystallization of monosodium urate within and around the joint. Sometimes it is accompanied by formation of large crystalline aggregates called tophi. Tophi is the hallmark of gouty arthritis. Eventually, it will lead to permanent joint deformity. Uric acid synthesis is the end product of purine catabolism. It is the increased urate synthesis that typically reflects some abnormality in purine nucleotide production. The synthesis of purine nucleotides has two interlinked pathways. One is salvage pathway and another is de novo pathway. So de novo means purine is synthesized from non-purine precursors. Salvage pathway is whatever purines we are taking from the diet, that is from the dietary intake or free purine bases which are available in our body, all that will be utilized for the synthesis of purine nucleotides. So purine nucleotides undergoes the end product of purine nucleotide is urate. Okay, so purine nucleotides is converted into hypoxanthine into xanthine into urate. So if if purine nucleotide synthesis is increased, then urate will also increase. Hypoxanthine guanine pyrophosphate. Okay, so this is an enzyme. This is an enzyme called HGPRT which converts the hypoxanthine into purine in purine salvage pathway. That is, for the production of purine, we need this HGPRT enzyme. Okay. So what is the full form of HGPRT? Hypoxanthine guanine phosphoribosyl transferase. So this if deficient will interrupt the production of purine. Okay. HGPRT synthetase enzyme will increase the production of purine. So we need this enzyme. If HGPRT is not there, then purine production cannot occur. Only hypoxanthine will form, and hypoxanthine will form urate. We won't have purine nucleotides. Then coming to uric acid secretion, circulating uric acid is freely filtered by glomerulus and virtually completely reabsorbed in the proximal tubules of the kidney. A small fraction of the resorbed uric acid is subsequently secreted by distal nephron and excreted in the urine. So it is the difference, or it is the derangement in the synthesis and excretion that will lead to gouty arthritis. So gouty arthritis is divided into primary and secondary forms. 90% of the cases are primary gout, which designate cases in which the basic cause is not known and the disorder is due to an inborn metabolic defect either in a known enzyme or unknown enzyme. Majority will be unknown enzyme defects, where there will be increased uric acid production or decreased uric acid excretion. The known enzyme defect which can occur in primary gout is the HGPRT. So HGPRT, either it will be partial HGPRT deficiency, then it is primary gout. So in which uric acid production will be increased but uric acid excretion will be normal. So these patients have identifiable enzyme defect. Secondary gout is hyperuricemia caused by increased urate production or decreased uric acid secretion. Urate production can be increased either due to rapid cell lysis during chemotherapy for lymphoma or leukemia. So production will also increase and excretion will also increase. And it can also, secondary gout can also occur in chronic renal disease in which uric acid production will decrease, but uric acid production will be normal, but they will be reduced renal excretion because of the drugs such as thiazide diuretics. Also, secondary gout can also be due to congenital defects like Lesch-Nyhan syndrome, which is complete absence of HGPRT, which will lead to increased uric acid production and increased uric acid secretion. So both will increase, production as well as excretion. So what is the pathogenesis? Elevated level of uric acid is essential either in primary or in secondary. So this elevated level of uric acid not necessarily will eventually lead to gout. It is the genetic and environmental factors which also play a role. It can result either due to overproduction or reduced excretion of the uric acid. So if we draw a flow chart and to understand the pathogenesis, it will be like this. Increased levels of uric acid in the blood and body fluids should be there. Body fluids means mostly in the synovial fluid. So if there is like supersaturation of these body fluids, then there will be precipitation of monosodium urate crystal. So there is a chain of events that culminate in joint injury. That is, first there will be activation of complement system, leading to production of chemotactic and pro-inflammatory mediators. So complement system in the fluid will be activated. Second will be the monosodium urate crystals will be phagocytosed by macrophages in the joint cavity. So macrophages will have this inflammasome. If you remember from the initial chapters, the inflammasome is responsible for the secretion of caspases. So caspase 1 will release cytokine like, stimulates the production of cytokine like interleukin 1. So interleukin 1 is responsible for accumulation of neutrophils and macrophages towards the joints and synovial membrane. So what will these neutrophils and macrophages do? Neutrophils will release leukotrienes, prostaglandins and free radicals. Whereas also it will macrophages will release proteases as well as lysosomal enzymes. So all this will lead to release of destructive lysosomal enzyme from activated inflammatory cells. So all eventually leading to tissue injury and inflammation. So this is what happens. The hyperuricemia leading to precipitation of urate crystals, complement activation. So inflammasome activation leads to release of interleukin 1 by caspase 1 production, TNF and IL-6. The synovial will be stimulated with release of proteases. Then neutrophil chemotaxis occurs. Neutrophils will also phagocytose the crystals, and the release of crystals cause lysis and activation of other neutrophils. If the other neutrophils are lysed, they could cause release of lysosomal enzymes. The neutrophils also release leukotrienes, prostaglandins and free radicals. So all this will lead to tissue injury and inflammation. Major morphological manifestation of gout are acute arthritis, chronic tophaceous arthritis, tophi in various sites, and gouty nephropathy. Acute arthritis is characterized by dense neutrophilic infiltrate permeating the synovium and the synovial fluid. So there will be presence of long, slender, needle-shaped monosodium urate crystals in the cytoplasm of the neutrophils and also in clusters in the synovium. So synovium will become edematous and congested and contain scattered mononuclear inflammatory cells as well. Chronic tophaceous arthritis means repetitive precipitation of urate crystals for a long duration of time. During acute attacks will be there. Intermittent acute attacks will be there. Urates can heavily encrust in the articular surface and form visible deposits in the synovium. Synovium now becomes hyperplastic, fibrotic. So fibrosis is a feature of chronicity. So fibrotic and thickened by inflammatory cell forming a pannus. Pannus is nothing but deposition of fibrous tissue because of the fibroblast, the granulation tissue and fibroblast, granulation tissue, foreign body giant cells, everything will be there. So this destroys underlying cartilage leading to justarticular bone erosions. In severe cases, fibrous or bony ankylosis. So pannus formation is a precursor to ankylosis or joint fusion. Tophi in various sites is the third type of morphology, which is pathognomic for gout. These are formed by large aggregate of urate crystals. So these crystals will now be surrounded by inflammatory cells like lymphocytes, macrophages, foreign body giant cells attempting to engulf the masses of the crystals. Gouty nephropathy refers to renal complication associated with urate deposition variously from medullary tophi, intratubular precipitations of free uric acid crystals and renal calculi. Secondary complications are pyelonephritis and urinary obstruction. So now this is a picture showing amputated great toe with the white tophi. So this is a white tophi deposit involving the joint and the soft tissues as well. Okay. This is the tophaceous deposit at the great toe, and histologically, gouty tophus will look like an aggregate of dissolved urate crystals surrounded by reactive fibroblast, mononuclear inflammatory cells and giant cells. So these are the giant cells, and there will be fibroblast and mononuclear inflammatory cells. The crystal as such will be pale in color. Okay. Clinically, gout is more common in men than women, not usually cause symptoms before the age of 30. The risk factors are obesity, alcohol intake, consumption of purine-rich foods, diabetes, metabolic syndrome and renal failure. Clinically, 4 stages are classically recognized, that is asymptomatic hyperuricemia, that is around puberty in males and after menopause in women, acute gouty arthritis, intercritical gout. What is intercritical gout? It is the resolution of acute arthritis leads to a symptom-free interval. Although some patients never have another attack, most experience a second acute episode within months. And the attacks recur at shorter intervals and frequently there will be multiple joint involvement. Chronic tophaceous gout usually develops on an average of about 12 to 14 years after the initial attack. So this says the same thing, that acute gouty arthritis is sudden onset, excruciating joint pain will be there. Mostly it will be monoarticular. Mostly it will be first metatarso-pharyngeal joint, and 90% it involves ankle, heel and wrist. Last for hours to weeks. And chronic will show just articular bone erosion caused by crystal deposit and loss of joint space. It can also lead to chronic gouty nephropathy. Renal colic can also be present. What is pseudo-gout? Gout is because of monosodium urate crystals. Pseudo-gout is because of calcium pyrophosphate crystal. This is also called as chondrocalcinosis. Crystal deposit first in structures composed of cartilage such as menisci in the knee joints, the intervertebral disc and the articular surfaces. And when the deposit enlarge enough, they may rupture, inducing an inflammatory reaction. Typically, the first occurs in persons 50 years of age or older, becoming more common with increasing age and eventually reaching a prevalence of 30% to 60% in those of more than 85. No gender or race predilection will be there. So this is how a gouty arthritis will look like. Tophi in the gouty arthritis. So this is again a tophaceous gout surrounded by epithelioid histiocytes, fibroblasts and inflammatory cells. So this is urate crystals. These are needle shaped crystals and they are negatively bifringent under polarized light. This is the acute phase of acute gouty arthritis. Coming to the infectious arthritis. Also, I would like to say that the pseudo-gout, the difference between gout and pseudo-gout is three differences you should remember. First is the crystal. Crystal is calcium pyrophosphate crystals in pseudo-gout and monosodium urate in gout. Then second point is the microscopical picture. In pseudo-gout, we see deposits which are present in cartilage and they are basophilic in nature, that is bluish in nature, whereas here in gout they are pale in color. Then the third point is the bifringence. So calcium pyrophosphate crystals are positively bifringent, whereas in gout, like here if you see, they will be negatively bifringent. Infectious arthritis, the mode of entry of the infectious agent is hematogenous dissemination and direct inoculation or by contiguous spread from osteomyelitis or a soft tissue abscess. Infectious arthritis is serious because it can cause rapid joint destruction and permanent deformities. Suppurative arthritis, in children less than 2 years of age, Haemophilus influenza. In older children and adults, Staphylococcus aureus and gonococcus. Patients with sickle cell disease, salmonella infection can affect at any age. Both genders are affected equally except for gonococcal arthritis, which occurs mainly in sexually active women. In this group, those with deficiency of complement system like C5, C6, C7 are particularly susceptible to disseminated gonococcal infections. Suppurative arthritis clinical presentation includes sudden onset with cardinal signs of acute inflammation like fever, leukocytosis, elevated ESR, and it involves single joint. Usually the knee joint is involved. Following order will be hip joint, shoulder joint, elbow joint, wrist joint and sternoclavicular joint. Joint aspiration typically yields a purulent fluid in which causal agent can be identified. Morphology, there will be swollen inflamed joint, and histological examination reveals chronic papillary synovitis with synoviocyte hyperplasia, fibrin deposition, mononuclear cell infiltrate and onion skin thickening of arterial wall is important. So these are my references. Thank you so much for patient listening. If you have any doubt, you can mention in the comment section. Thank you.